once again to Real Shame, a very, very merry Real Shame. It's a show where we review movies from our movie list of shame or movie blind spots, basically movies that we haven't seen that we're fixing that and reviewing for your watching pleasure. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy. My sweater lights up.
The sweater's lighting up. Look at that.
See it. I don't know.
You got a very cool Santa with like a keyboard and everything.
I know.
Guitar
or something.
Very cool.
I'll turn it off so it's not distracting.
My Santa's drunk, as he was last week, and as he will be the rest of the week.
He's drunk again.
It's December 25th, and a lot of people are celebrating Christmas today and all that kind of stuff. And there's a plethora of Christmas movies. And there's a new one that came out this year that we decided to review. But before we talk about that new one, we're going to go back because it's a sequel and talk about its origin story. This is X-Men Origins Wolverine, guys.
Yeah, we're going back almost 40 years.
That's right.
First off, to talk about how Ralphie just wants a Red Ryder Carbine Action 200-shot range model air rifle for Christmas. But his parents and everyone else thinks, you'll shoot your eye out, kid, in A Christmas Story.
Ah, there it is. The holy grail of Christmas gifts, the Red Ryder 200-shot range model air rifle. And there he is, Red Ryder himself. In his hand was the knurled stock of as coolly deadly-looking a piece of weaponry as ever I had laid eyes on. For weeks, I had been scheming to get my mitts on one of these fearsome blue steel beauties. My fevered brain seethed with the effort of trying to come up with the infinitely subtle devices necessary to implant the Red Ryder range model air rifle indelibly into my parents' subconscious.
So Christmas Story came out, again, almost 40 years ago. It actually came out in November of 1983, November 18th to be precise. It was directed by Bob Clark, and Bob Clark, to me, has always been kind of a funny choice to direct A Christmas Story. Like, it's funny, like, every time I see directed by Bob Clark when I watch Christmas Story, which I've seen a million times.
Yeah, I think
because Bob Clark directed Black Christmas, which we reviewed on the show, which is a classic horror film that takes place at Christmas time. He also directed some other horror films like Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, and Death Dream is another one, which is kind of like the Monkey's Paw in a weird way. But then he transitioned into doing some Konamis. He's Canadian. I think that's where I was going. The Canadian comedies. I think I smashed that together and made Konamis or something. But he made Porky's 1 and 2, the first Porky's, and Porky's 2 the next day. I think there's a third Porky's, like Porky's Revenge, but he didn't do that one. He did those movies right before he did A Christmas Story. Let's see. The original Christmas Story is written by Bob Clark, Lee Brown, and Gene Shepard because it is taken from Gene Shepard's stories book, In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash. Gene Shepard kind of reminds me of like Garrison Keillor. He's one of these guys that he had his own kind of radio show, and he's just this kind of down-home guy that talked about his upbringing, and he had a story for every star in the sky, as they say. You know, this guy had all kinds of stories, all kinds of yarns that he could spin about his upbringing and whatnot. And those comprise what became A Christmas Story, as well as some other movies that we can talk about as well. But we've both seen A Christmas Story
numerous times.
Numerous times. You can look at like Wikipedia, and you can find anywhere on the internet kind of the history of like how long it's been shown on TNT and TBS, and when they started showing it round the clock, and all this other stuff. Because I remember when I was really little, it was always It's a Wonderful Life, like round the clock, or it seemed like. And then that began to be eclipsed by A Christmas Story. And now I feel like I definitely still see several channels showing It's a Wonderful Life, but I feel like I see A Christmas Story everywhere.
Well, and I think when we reviewed It's a Wonderful Life, a few years ago, 2 years ago probably. Yeah. Or was that, did we do?
I can't remember if it was last year, if it was, I don't remember the order, but yeah.
I mentioned that Christmas Story was my grandfather's favorite movie to play at the holiday time, and we would turn into TNT or TBS, and then have it play all the time in the background and stuff like that. So I've seen bits and pieces of it numerous times and seen the movie a whole bunch and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So does that mean that you like it?
Yeah, I think overall I enjoy this movie. It's hard for me to kind of be very critical on the movie just because
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times. But you know, there are pieces of it that are kind of like canon and that me and my friends joke around about and talk about and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's pretty well done. I like, you know, the fantasy of it, of Ralphie and how he thinks he's going to be how he thinks he's a great writer and his want for the gun, and then all the mischief and stuff like that happens around Christmas and all that kind of stuff is heartwarming to me. You know, it's like a warm apple pie kind of thing. It's a nice taste of like the American dream, and maybe not as nice as the who's the artist? Is it
Norman Rockwell.
Norman Walk. Maybe not as nice as the Rockwell painting or drawing, but you know, it seems true to life. It seems lived in, and all that kind of stuff. So I do have a hard time separating it, but I've every time it's on, I always find myself enraptured in it, and I always have fun watching it. So I would say generally I like the movie a lot. Where do you fall on it these days? Are you the same way, or are you a little different?
Yeah, no, I think I'm pretty much the same way. I've seen it so many times and seen so many bits and pieces of it so many times.
Yeah.
It's just become a fact of life
Yeah.
at this point, and so it's hard for me to say like what my initial thoughts on it when I first saw it, because I mean I probably first saw it in its entirety, you know, when I was a kid. And then just after all this time, I mean, I know, and I probably said this also when we did It's a Wonderful Life, I prefer It's a Wonderful Life. Like when it comes to Christmas films, I try and make sure that I see It's a Wonderful Life at least once in the month of December every single year. Christmas Story, I could take it or leave it at this point. And again, it doesn't mean I don't like it. It just means I've just seen it so many times. And I've probably seen It's a Wonderful Life as many, you know, the same amount of times. But A Christmas Story, I don't know. I'm just like, it's not like when it's on TV, I'm like, oh, I got to sit down and watch it. Because I know it by heart.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh, yeah, I've seen it all, you know, been there, done that. But yeah, I mean, I can't really knock the movie for much. I mean, I think it's good. I like the cast. I didn't mention the cast, but I started thinking about it, and I thought, oh, you know, I have the cast list written down, but we'll mention them when we do the second one, because it's pretty much the same. We'll mention the omissions or whatever. But I like Darren McGavin as the father in the original film, and Melinda Dillon as the mother in the original film, and all the little kids are fun. So yeah.
I was gonna say, for me, this movie it definitely hangs off of Darren McGavin.
Yeah.
Like, he is front and center. I mean, I feel like actually Peter Billingsley, Ralphie is probably more front and center. But for me, whenever the movie's on, I always focus on, you know, the old man Parker and all that kind of stuff. And for me, all the best scenes of the movie are around him and him getting flustered and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how well that bodes for its sequel. But, you know, I always like his scenes the most, more than out of any of the stuff with the kids or anything like that.
I completely agree. And I mean, I don't know about you, but it kind of reminds me of my own father.
Yeah.
You know, my own father getting mad and cussing
my grandfather
at something,
or
kicking this, you know, like damn furnace, you know, how come it can't work, and trying to save money and pinch pennies and all this. I mean, I can see, and I think that's the, you know, part of the appeal is that everybody can kind of see some family member, you know, they can kind of identify with, you know, maybe the dad or the mom or whatever. Oh, my grandmother, my grandfather, my father, my mother were like that.
Oh, how excited he won like the prize. I forget what he calls it. It's like not a nominal prize, but he keeps on calling it like some kind of prize, and it's just like the leg lamp and stuff like that.
And he doesn't know how to say the word fragile. He's like fragile.
Yeah. Oh, it must be French.
Yeah.
Or Italian.
Fancy. Yeah. Yeah.
And stuff like that.
It's a fun movie. But yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, obviously we watched it, you know, for this to kind of talk about it, but I mean, I don't even know that I had to watch it, right? Because I mean, I just know it. I've seen it so many times.
I think the Peter and the Wolf stuff too, when the bullies are beating the kids up, is pretty cool. Like, I just think that's, you know, interesting music and done well and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, like you, I'm like you. It's hard for me to. I could probably, you know, spout the movie out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice this time around was whenever he's fantasizing about her reading the paper and it being the best thing she ever read, and she's like an A+ and a plus. I didn't realize that she goes around the classroom like writing on the wall like plus like all that kind of stuff. Like I guess I never paid that close attention, but that was something I caught this time around that I thought was interesting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, his little fantasy daydreams that he has.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I watched it on HBO Max this time, and I can't. Is that in 4K? I know there is a 4K version.
I don't
Did you
remember
happen to
if it's
notice
4K.
it's in 4K?
I don't
I
remember.
think it's just HD, but I know it's been released recently on 4K. So if you have a hankering to own the original Christmas Story in 4K, it's available.
All right.
You can get it now. But yeah, I mean, I think that's.
Is there any critics reviews on this?
Oh yes, the original film is 90% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 88% audience. It got 2 thumbs up when it came out from Siskel and Ebert, and Leonard Maltin, the highest ranking he can give, he gives it 4 stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is this the first 4-star? I'm sure we've done some other 4 stars, Mullen stuff like that, because we've done like Citizen Kane and all that kind of stuff.
And pretty soon we'll do another 4-star Leonard Maltin movie.
There you go.
Sooner than you might think.
All right, so we watched The Christmas Story just so we can talk about the sequel coming out, and we'll get into that. So now we're going to talk about, the story that follows the now adult Ralphie as he returns to the house on Cleveland Street to give his kids a magical Christmas like the one he had as a child, reconnecting with childhood friends and reconciling with the passing of the old man in A Christmas Story Christmas.
Ah, there it was. Our old house on Cleveland Street. It looked like it had been frozen in time.
You're here! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! I missed you, Grandma! I love you guys! Oh, Sandy! I'm so sorry.
Mom.
Ralphie.
I'm so sorry, Mom. He was the best.
I'm so glad that you all are here.
Of course. And I don't want you to worry about anything. I'm going to take care of all the arrangements, the service.
No. Listen to me, Ralphie. All that can wait. Your father was so excited about Christmas. If he saw us moping around, he'd just throw a fit. I've given this a lot of thought, and this can't be the thing that we think of every Christmas. We've got to make it a good memory, so promise me. Promise me. We're going to make this a wonderful Christmas, one that we'll never forget.
Mom. Oh, in the history of tall orders, this one took the cake. There was no way. Impossible. Give up now, stupid. I promise.
All right, Christmas Story Christmas came out this year, 2022. It is written by Nick Schnick and Peter Billingsley, Ralphie himself.
Yeah.
He got to try his hand at writing both fictionally and non-fictionally for the story, and is directed by Clay Kaitis. And I see from your notes that Clay Kaitis is directed the Angry Birds movie and the Christmas Chronicles, which I like the first Christmas Chronicles.
Yeah, and I think he only directed the first one. I don't think he did the second one.
So this is a sequel to a movie. It's not the only sequel to A Christmas Story. There's actually been 2 other movies that are from the same family. Oh, yeah. You have that on your notes. So why don't you tell us what the other things that...
Yeah, so I didn't realize... I mean, I mentioned Gene Shepard. He wrote some books and things like that. And God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash is where apparently the stories for A Christmas Story come from. And I think maybe even part of A Christmas Story Christmas. I can't remember. But they actually had made stories or made films. They were television films out of some of his other stories back in the 1970s on PBS. They made one called The Phantom of the Open Hearth. and The Great American 4th of July and Other Disasters. Well, then after the success of A Christmas Story, I believe, they made two more which featured the Parkers family, but these were TV movies that were on PBS only, and good luck finding them. I think I found one on like the Internet Archive or something, or maybe YouTube. The Star-Crossed Romance of Josephine Kosnowski and Ollie Hopnoodle. These all have really long titles and weird names. Ollie Hopnoodle's Haven of Bliss were some TV movies that they made, which also apparently feature the Parker family. But then there was an actual theatrical film called It Runs in the Family, and I think when it came out on video, it was called My Summer Story, and I believe it's also directed by Bob Clark, which serves as a sequel to A Christmas Story, even though it's not a Christmas time movie. And then in 2012, they actually came out with A Christmas Story 2, which was a direct-to-video film with a Ralphie who was in high school. So he was like chasing girls with Flick and Schwartz.
Okay.
And Darren McGavin had already passed away by that point. He did not reprise his role, obviously. Daniel Stern is the father. This time, he's the old man. And I can't remember who plays the mother. I know I've seen her in some other things, but it's not Melinda Dillon in A Christmas Story 2. And then, of course, they did Christmas Story Live a few years ago, because now they're doing live
Everything
The Wiz
live,
and live Grease and all these live versions. Live Annie. They did a version of Christmas Story Live, which was based off of A Christmas Story, the musical.
Yeah.
That came out. The musical came out in 2012. Christmas Story Live came out in 2017. So that brings us up to
today.
Today, yeah.
So we both like A Christmas Story. It's a part of our upbringing. It's part of our DNA at this point. We've seen
can't hate on it.
You can't hate on it.
I would be a Scrooge if I did.
But can you hate on the new Christmas Story? Where do you land on the new one?
I don't know about hate, but I didn't really like it overall. This movie is getting a lot of acclaim, and
really
it is. And I mean at the end here, I'll tell what the freshness Rotten Tomato score is, but it actually is getting a lot of acclaim. The first thing that I saw, so again, I don't read reviews of things that I'm going to watch, so I didn't read any reviews or anything like that ahead of time. But I think I did happen to see that it was like fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, so I thought, oh, interesting. When I sat down and watched it, I think it's cool to see Peter Billingsley in an acting role again, because he basically was a child actor. He's in A Christmas Story. He's in like The Dirt Bike Kid. He's in a couple of other things. I think he's in the movie Arcade as like a teenager, which came out in the 90s, and he did some other stuff. But he's largely been a producer, like behind the scenes. I know he's partnered up with Vince Vaughn.
He was an Elf.
Yeah, I mean, he has some bit roles, but he's not been front and center like he was when he was a child, right? So I think it's cool to see him back kind of front and center. It's a bit jarring because, he's obviously in his 50s or whatever now, but I mean, I'm not one to talk. I'm getting up there too, but it was a bit jarring to see him, but it was still cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, like as far as the cat, which by the way, did you want to go through any of the cast?
Yeah, I mean, so we have Peter Billingsley returning as Ralphie Parker. We have his wife now, who's Erin Hayes, new to the cast.
Yeah.
River, was that
Drosh
as Mark. We have Juliana Lane as Julie.
So
those are his kids.
Are his two kids, yeah.
Then we have Julie Haggerty as Miss Parker, which is now his wife, or not his wife, his mom. Sorry, who replaces Melinda Dillon. We have Scott Schwartz as Flick returning in that role. We have R.D. Robb as Schwartz returning as his role. We have Davis Murphy as Dilbert Bumpkiss, who's like the new kid that's kind of, I think, going after the family. Then we have Zach Ward, who got a glow up actually, as now he's Officer Scott Farkas.
Yeah. He was a bully as a child.
He was a bully.
Now he's a police officer.
And then I think they it's actually I thought they recast Randy, but no apparently
it's the same guy.
Yeah, the same guy as Randy. He didn't look like young Randy, so that's surprising to me.
Yeah, they basically brought back everybody that they could, with the exception of Darren McGavin because he passed away. Melinda Dillon is not passed away, thankfully, but she's retired. She retired from acting in 2007, has not done anything since, and so she was not coming back to reprise her role as Mrs. Parker. And then the final person that I believe that they asked back was his teacher, Miss Shields, played by Teddy Moore, and she just didn't want to do it, I think. I think she turned them down. Yeah,
okay.
So she didn't come back. But it was cool seeing Flick and Schwartz and all that. Because again, I mean, I don't know if those guys have done much outside of A Christmas Story. So This is my first time seeing any of those guys, so
fair.
I thought that was cool that they cast that were able to cast all those guys. I like that part of it. I do like Erin Hayes that plays his wife because she's in Children's Hospital, which I was a fan of that show, and she's in the new Medical Police, which is basically a spinoff of Children's Hospital, and she's a funny comedic actress. Unfortunately, I feel like she has very little to do in this movie.
Yeah, she's kind of wasted in this movie.
Yeah, they don't really show her comedic chops because she is funny in Children's Hospital and in Medical Police, so that was kind of a strike against them. But for me, the biggest thing was just it didn't have the same magic as the original film. They do try and do kind of the callback kind of things. They have him do the daydreams, which to me are totally out of place.
Yes.
That makes sense as a kid. Like you're daydreaming about getting an A on your paper, like you said, or about shooting Black Bart and his gang, with your Red Ryder BB gun and stuff. But now he's like daydreaming about being a famous writer with Isaac Asimov and all these guys.
Now
and Frank Herbert.
It comes off as like, does he have like mental problems?
Yeah,
like,
it was weird. It was very weird. And then he's daydreaming again about being like Black Bart or whatever.
Yeah, now as an adult. Yeah.
So that was very strange. But just a lot of the callback stuff, again, it was cool to see Flick and Schwartz, and I can't remember, one of them owns a bar, I don't remember which one, but he owns a bar, the other one drinks at it all the time, and then of course they got to go like ride the big slide thing, and he's got a triple dog dare him and all that stuff. It just came across as extremely forced to me. And it just didn't work. I didn't think it was a terrible film. I feel like they tried, but I'm not with the critics as far as it being like really good and a worthy successor and all that kind of stuff. I just was like, it wasn't heartwarming at all to me, and it's supposed to be. Obviously, his father has passed away. It's bittersweet that he's come home for Christmas. He's sad. Now he's kind of taking over that role. It should have had more of an emotional impact on me, and it really had none.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Where did it sounds like it kind of landed in the same place with you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I might be even a little bit colder on this movie than you are.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie relies too much on the flashbacks.
Yeah.
Like the flights of fancy and all that kind of stuff. Like we have that one part where he's like going through the Norman Rockwell catalog or whatever, and he's seeing like glimpses of all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And like honestly, he says like in this movie he wants his family to experience, the wonderful Christmases that he had with his dad. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, did he have wonderful Christmases with his dad? Like we get to see one where that's like falling off the rails and it's really funny, but like I didn't get a sense that every Christmas with his dad was magical. And if it's like the ones we saw in A Christmas Story, then I would say those aren't really magical. Those are like, near misses with implosions and all that kind of stuff. So for me, the tone just seemed really off. And it seemed like, I think this movie would have been better if they were like leaning towards like a Christmas Vacation kind of way of telling the story where, he's in his dad's shoe now. He's really trying to make things happen and all that kind of stuff. And it's all like kind of crumbling beneath his fingers kind of stuff, which they kind of do, but I really feel like they pull the punches and they need to make him more like his dad. And honestly, it's missing, Darren McGavin is like the reason why you and I both said we like A Christmas Story, and just without him in this movie, it's sorely missed. And there's no one in the movie that's as interesting and as captivating, as him in the movie,
Yeah, because certainly Ralphie's not.
Yeah. Like it's just he doesn't have the gravitas, and it's not as interesting as when things are falling apart for him.
Yeah.
And he just seems more like his dad seems like good natured and like his dad seems like good natured, and it seems like he gets flabbergasted and stuff like that. But Peter Billingsley, Ralphie in here, seems more inept than anything. Like he's trying to do things that his dad did or his dad taught him, and he just can't do it.
Yeah. Not
that the situations get out of hand or anything like that, just that he can't do it. So to me, it comes off as like really inept more than like, good natured as I got from his dad. You know what I mean? Mm. So that kind of really did me in. And like I said, the flashbacks were just too much. It was just too much for me.
Yeah.
I did get a little cringe of hope in the movie when they discovered, and we're going to spoil the movie for you, when they discovered those gifts that the dad bought and they were in the basement, like that made me feel good. Like that hit that nerve. And I thought that was interesting and cool, but that was really it in the movie that I really kind of enjoyed.
It was too late by that point.
Yeah,
because that basically is the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's basically in the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I don't get the love for it at all. It just feels not great at all. It just feels like it completely misses the mark, misses what made the original movie so well loved and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, as far one of the last things I'll say is I like Erin Hayes, as I said, as his wife. I really miss Melinda Dillon as the mother.
Yeah.
I like Julie Haggerty. I don't have anything against her, but every time I see her, no matter what she's in, I just think of her character in Airplane, and she's just silly to me.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not how Melinda Dillon was in the original film. So even though I know Melinda Dillon's retared, it's a damn shame. I wish she could have come back and done it, but Julie Haggerty, I wish they would have cast somebody else.
Yeah.
And not her.
Yeah, I don't know why we need the tie to his parents and all this stuff. Like, we could have just done without them at all and just been more about him. Like I said, I think a Christmas Vacation would be a good kind of map to follow for making this kind of movie and making something that could be almost as beloved as, A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my opinion.
Well, this movie is 79% fresh currently. It actually, like, I remember I wrote down the scores maybe a week ago, and I double checked them last night, and they had changed slightly. So I was like, oh yeah, because it's a brand new movie, and so they're subject to change. But as of right now, as we're filming this episode,
recording.
Yes, and hopefully it'll be the same when it actually airs on Christmas. It's 79% fresh, 80% audience, and obviously I couldn't find a Leonard Maltin review or anything like that. So, and I didn't pluck the IMDb score, but I think it's high. I mean, it's 6 or 7 probably. I don't know, out of 10. So.
All right. Well, anything else?
That's it.
That's A Christmas Story and A Christmas Story, Christmas Story. The snake eating its own tail kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think of the movies. Are you in love with the classic like we are? And what'd you think of the sequel, the new sequel, and all that kind of stuff?
What'd you think of the other sequels? It Runs in the Family and A Christmas Story 2.
Summer Story and all that kind of stuff. Let us know if you've seen the musical. We'll be curious about that. Leave a comment down below. And stay tuned next week for our last episodes of the year. And as we wind down and all that kind of stuff. And we watch the movies from my list of shame, I believe. Yep. And we'll see you soon, guys. Have a good one.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.